Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick-Taking Table. I'm Taylor, Handlebar Taylor in the alternate dimension. I have some sad news. We didn't realize that in this dimension, I guess, you can't do final thoughts like I did last video, where I include Cocomelon in the bottom part of the screen during the whole final thoughts. Turns out, you're gonna get copyright striked. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Yeah, big Cocomelon did not like that. And I feel so bad because people in the comments were like, no, I love Cocomelon. You can't take this away from me. So, I'm so sorry to all those Coco heads out there. There will be no more Cocomelon in the final thoughts. But that's okay. Moving on. Bigger and better things for the channel. Today, we're covering a game called Roulette-Taking Game. Designed by Mrs. Mommy, or Mommy Fujin by PAX Guild also. The hook is, it's trick-taking, but with roulette. And you know how in a roulette game, or maybe you don't know, but in a roulette game, you spin a ball and it goes around and it tries, the ball really tries to land in one of these slots. And players in roulette are just trying to bid and gamble on what that number is. But in roulette-taking, the trick-taking game, you're playing trick-taking and you're trying to see what the last card that's going to win the last trick. I don't know if I phrased that right. You're going to try to predict what card wins the last trick. That was much better phrased. So I, for research for this video, went to Vegas. And I'll show a little bit of a montage. In fact, September is probably going to turn a little bit into a traveling month. The next few months I have a lot of traveling going on, so it'll be Sep-Traver. And also I went to the World Series of Board Gaming, which was wild, and has a nice segue into what I should be talking about, which is the giveaway from last video for 12 chip trick and Stickling, or monster trick. So it was great. It'll be part of the montage, but essentially I got to run into a ton of amazing people like Paula Deming, and I had the first fan encounter. That's right, I ran into a fan encounter for the first time. I was so excited. I couldn't believe it. I even asked for a photo. I got super flustered. I don't know if it's supposed to be the other way around, but I was like, please can I have a photo? So here's the photo. I blocked out their face because I didn't want to incriminate anyone. But yeah, I didn't want to say their name, but let's get into the winners of the thing. So the winner of Stickling is Zach Bruck. And the winner of 12 Chip Trick is Ryan Hopkins. That's right. So just send me over anything. I have, links in the description for Twitter or Board Game Geek or whatever. Just send me your address, and I'll send those out. And the main event, I auctioned off as a subscriber giveaway, my subscriber War Hero. And they are going to go to none other than Alex Singh. So yeah, Alex, please take care of my dear subscriber, War Hero. They're an amazing person. They actually are in the original thumbnail for the channel before we move to the wonderful Sai Beppo one. Anyway, all that to say, we're going to do a quick montage and then we'll get to the table and I'm going to teach you how to play the delightful roulette-taking game. All right, take it away, editing Taylor. Out of all these machines, this one pays out so well. You just hit this button, you put your credit card in there, and you get all this cash. It's crazy. So there's that mini montage, and I just want to say before we go to the table, so much fun to run into such amazing people like Paula Deming and Board Game Dave. It was just an absolute blast. I had an interesting time in Vegas. I'd never been. I went to the Bellagio because I was like, you know what? I'm in Vegas. I gotta gamble, and I had $100, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to do blackjack because in high school I learned how to count cards in blackjack, and I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Go to the Bellagio because Ocean's 11, and I will bid as little as possible just to say I had done a blackjack hand. So I was walking through. It's like Friday at like 1 a.m. I'm walking through, I'm looking for tables, and the only table that's open is like one in the way back, and there's just one person sitting there, and it's like really quiet in that area, and I don't know what's going on. So I walk up to the table, I sit down, I do the whole ID thing. The person has a bunch of chips, and I'm just like, oh, okay, this is like a normal thing. I give the $100, and they give me back 2 chips. That's right. It was a $50 minimum blackjack table. And I am probably one of the more nervous times I've ever been in my life because I don't like gambling. And I was incredibly terrified. I was expecting there to be $5 minimums. I get a few hands in and I cash out as fast as possible and get back on my flight back home. So I go in $50 and I'm at a 16, I think. And the dealer has a king. And I get super nervous and I go hit. And they go, huh? But I got a 5 and I got a blackjack and I left immediately. So yeah, that's my gambling story in Vegas. Always read the minimums, people. Okay, so oh, and I did play roulette. That's in the montage, but I did play roulette, and it was brutal. I bid on 00, which is like a thing in this game, and but I didn't hit the minimum. So the dealer was like, minimum to me, and I was like, I don't know what that means. And I was looking at them, they're like, minimum, and I was like, I don't know what that means. And then they're like, no more betting. And I had all my chips on 00, and 00, and it landed on 00, and I was like, that's good, right? And they're like, no, you didn't bet the minimum. Vegas. What happens in Vegas, I tell you in the intro to a video. Okay, on the way to Roulette-Taking. The deck in Roulette-Taking is numbered 1 through 36 in 2 suits, kind of diamond, and then this black circle here. And then every prime number is special, like it'll either have the Grim Reaper or this kind of creepy Joker character. And that's significant for the trumping mechanism in the game, which I'll explain later. And then finally, these 2 cards, the 0 and the 00, which are trump. Here we have the game mostly set up for 3 players. So at the start, you're going to deal out 9 cards to each player. The dealer, which I'll explain what the dealer does later, is actually going to get this no more bet card, which looks like the others. So they'll only get 8 plus the no more bet card. And then you're going to take the rest of the cards that were dealt and actually put these black discs on those spots. So let me do that now. Alrighty, now with that set up, I can keep explaining what this is. Over there's the bank, and then also kind of what explains which color corresponds to which note in the bank. Like the yellow's 100 or the blue is 50. And then each player is going to get these kind of wider tokens, which represent who they are on the board when they make a bet. Essentially, they're going to place out their tokens here, and then place whatever number of bet they want to put on there. So these are a little bit wider than the poker chips, just to be able to hold the poker chips. The players will also start with some money. So if you're the dealer, you're going to start with 15. And then if you're not the dealer, you're going to start with 10. And finally, the dealer is going to get all the rest of these black chips, which cover up the played cards, because they'll be doing that during the trick play. So let's get into the trick play. So starting with the dealer, they're going to play a card to the table. So if the dealer played a 12 in the red suit, it's a must-follow game, meaning the following players have to play a red suit if they have it. However, if they have a trump card, they can play a trump card whenever they want. So the 0 and the 00 can be played even if they could follow suit. And what's also interesting is the cards that have the special characters on them, so like the Grim Reaper or the Spooky Clown, which I guess I don't have in this hand, but the Spooky Clown, they are trump when they are played off suit. And you can play them because you can play trump at any time. So if it was lead if it was lead diamond, this character over here, the black rupee, they can follow suit with any of the reds, so the 14, 1, the 30 over here, or they can play one of their trump cards, because if you play these off suit, again, they're trump. So the only cards they can't play right now are just these 2, so it's kind of crazy. So maybe they don't want to do that, and they just play the 14. So then it will go to the rupee, and again, they can play any of the reds, including these. And the trumps, like these suits where it's the Grim Reaper and the Clown, they are only trump if you play them off suit. So if they play this 5 here, since it's not off suit, that isn't a trump. It's not going to beat those other cards. So then you would look at the highest trump, since there's no trump, you would look at the highest lead, and that player, whoever wins the trick, is going to place a bet. So this player over here, the black rupee, is going to place a bet on the table. First, before that happens, the dealer is going to look at what cards came out. So the 5, the 12, and the 14, and they're going to put those black tokens on those to just help players understand what the board state is. And so, again, the goal of the game is you're trying to bet on what number you think is going to win the last trick. Super interesting concept. So the cards can be bet on themselves, and they would give a payout of either 5 times 10 or times 20. And this is like 20 to 1 or 50 to 1. So if Black Rupee was really confident here that they think the 31 of black is going to win the final trick, they can put their bet here, and this is, 5. So if they win this, they're going to get 5 times 5, they're going to get $25. And so after the winner places their bet, the winner would then just lead to the trick. And I'll explain what all the other bets are in a little bit, but let's do one more trick before that. So maybe they play, they probably shouldn't play the 31 because that's one of their bets. It's not a good idea. So then maybe they play this 1 red. So coming to the red rupee here, they play an 18. And then finally the dealer, so they could, play that 0 and they'd be winning it because it's trump. Or they could play this and they'd also be winning it because since it's offsuit, it's the trump in this case. So let's say they did that. The dealer can win tricks and they can bet if they want to. They don't have to. And maybe they want to do that to like block certain things, right? Because you can always do a null bet. You can do like an empty bet. So maybe the dealer just blocks that. And then the dealer would lead to the trick. So the different bets are, again, this is just 5 to 1, 10 to 1, 20 to 1 on a certain number, and then 50 to 1. Up here is it's 3 to 1, and you're betting on a column. So you think the winning trick is going to be any of these numbers in that column, or this column for here, here, and here. So like if players, place there, and then bet like that, they want any of these numbers to win. Over here is this chunk. So if you bet over here, you think any number 1 through 12 is going to win. And then here's the second 12, third 12. This is betting on if you think an odd number is going to win. Super interesting. This is betting on which suit you think is going to win. Here's even, and then here's just 1 through 18. So the first half, and then here's the latter half. And these are all times 2, and then these 3 are times 3. The last thing to explain is the no more bet card. So the dealer can only play this if they have 4 or less cards. So as you can see, they can't do it yet until, one of the last 4 tricks. When they play it, that just denotes, hey, we're stopping betting now after this trick. So this trick would resolve, and this is just the weakest card, so it can never win. But after this trick resolves, the person who won that trick will do the final bet, and then you just play out the trick taking. And what's interesting about that is you actually play the opposite way. It's supposed to simulate like a roulette wheel being spun. So then you just play out the rest of the trick taking, and you try to find out what the last card is. So if the dealer leads this, the lead suit would just go to the next person. So that's just pretty simple there. Again, the dealer can choose when to play it. So maybe they delay to play it until, the second to last trick or the last trick, because how the scoring works is, let's fast forward to maybe the end where that was out there, and maybe we got some more bids going, and maybe red won a couple tricks over here. So once you start, playing the rest of the tricks and this all gets filled up, there's going to be a final trick, right? Because this all gets covered, and the card that wins the final trick. So say this was the final trick. They try to win it with a 31. They lead a 31. This player has a 35. Oh no. And then this player has the trump. So maybe that's a little too spicy of an example. This player has 20. Oof. What's a good example? Let's just say they played a 29. Okay. So the winner of the card that won the last trick is this 35. So then you look at who bet on 35. So it was odd. So this player gets this back. They'll win, they'll win that back. So look at that, and then look at, any amount of money 2 times it, and then they'll just collect this back. Since it was a black suit, this player over here would win, the payout for betting there. This player, they were just playing that for block. This would lose. this over here lost because it wasn't in the first thing. And also in this one lost because it wasn't the 31 that won it. Any missed bids go to the dealer. So the dealer collects this money. So that's how the players earn points. The people who are betting, the non-dealers, are going to get payouts for correct bids, and then they're going to lose their money, not to the bank, but to the dealer. So that's maybe why the dealer wouldn't want to play the no more bet card too soon, because they get money on missed bets. So maybe if the players are like nowhere near what the dealer thinks is going to be the last winning card, they'll let, you know, the bidding go longer and longer and longer. But maybe if they think they're nervous and they think the players are close, they could play that, you know, on the fourth to last trick and kind of stop all the bidding. So then you just play rounds per player, so everyone's just the dealer once, and then whoever has the most money at the end wins. One thing to note, the trumps are a little tough to realize on the board, and all it is just the prime numbers of all the cards. But it's kind of tough to remember that when you're playing, like, oh, it's 29 prime or something, right? So I just put these little dots around the corners. I'm sure there's a better solution, but it's just tough and pretty important when you're betting, because if you're looking out here, you're like, maybe I'll bet here because it's the highest trump that's left, you know, things like that. But so, yeah, so that's what those dots were. So that is Roulette-Taking, or Roulette-Taking game. It's a funny one. I don't think I've seen a game that had quite some of the best production and some of the worst production I've seen. Like, I mean, even like this cover is a fascinating example. Like, this is all, I don't know what to call it, but like indented, super nice, like red on gray, really cool looking. But it's just a super flimsy, like stapled cardboard box that's like it's super hard to like stay on too, because it's so thin. Like, it came with like rubber bands to hold it all together. So it's weird. Like, the game is sometimes super, super nice and sometimes like, okay. Like, this is like amazing. Love this. Looks absolutely gorgeous. But the fact that there's no like symbols on the board for like what's trump is like a huge oversight. The fact that I had to like do all those dots just to like make it clear is like brutal. And then love the cards. Cards are great quality, like some of the best quality, especially like sometimes Japanese games are just like super thin card stock or whatever. Like sometimes they don't have like rounded corners. And this is just like fantastic. But then the fact that like the chips are the same color as the player things, and they get like confused all the time, especially because they are like similar size. So I don't know, it's just like a funny, sorry to ramble about production, I don't usually try to do that, but it's just a funny game where it's like some production is like insanely good and some of it is just like weirdly off. But enough about that. The gameplay. I really like this game. I think it's super, super fun. At 3. So at 4, it definitely overstays its welcome. You get much less agency in the trick play, and you don't get to bet as much, which is like, it's a betting game. I want to have fun. I want to bet. Let me bet. And with even just one more player, yeah, at 4, it really drags, and you kind of watch the game a little bit more than play the game. So that's always like, boo. So I love it at 3 though. So at 3, you get a beautiful tension between those two players bidding, boop, 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 and then the dealer kind of like watching that and like judging that the whole time. And like, if they win a trick, do they try to block things? Or like, when do they call the no bet? It has like a really nice flow. I haven't played this at 2, so I don't quite know the dynamics of just like one better, one dealer. I'm sure it's rad. I'm sure it's cool, but I don't know if that dynamic would be that interesting. I love when the two players that want to bet a lot are running into each other, right? And they are taking each other's spots. It's almost like a worker placement game, right? And like, these are the worker placement spots that people block. Like, oftentimes people will pick the even or the odd or the two suit color ones, because those are, you know, nice, kind of like safe, secure bets. And then they start getting to the wild, like, I'm gonna bet on the 0-0, right? But at 2, like, yeah, I think I'd miss that a little bit. So 3 is like this perfect sweet spot. Doesn't outsay its welcome. Everyone becomes the dealer once, and like, you feel that 3 rounds is like super choice. It's not long at that. And then again, like, since there's only 2 people bidding, the spots don't get covered too much. Like, just the right amount to be like, they blocked me. But also like, oh, maybe if I go here, right? I say this a lot. I probably said this every time I talk about games with 2 mechanisms. But like, this one has like, you know, like betting, gambling, and then trick taking. And I always want like the trick taking to inform the other mechanism, and then vice versa. And so what's super cool about this one is not only are you worrying about the last trick, so the betting is obviously informed by the trick taking, but you can do things in the game that like suck out certain cards from the other player's hands because it's must follow, to push like your betting agenda in like a certain way. And what I mean by that is like a really cool strategy that I like to do is I'll bet on like red diamond. I'll bet on red diamond. And then I'll try to get the lead and win a bunch of like black, so that it like sucks out black and there's less black to possibly win the final trick. Just love that concept. There's such a cool like flow to the betting, and the fact that things get covered up so you slowly like calculate like, oh, what's gonna happen. I think the fact that there's also like asymmetry with like the dealer and the bettor is really, really fun. The dealer having that choice of when to stop the betting is just sensational. I've, as dealer, done the no bet when there's 4 left, like as soon as possible. And I've also not done it, like just wrote it out. And it's cool that the game can like find those situations where like, as the dealer, you could be like, ooh, they're super close to like betting on what I'm pretty sure is going to win the final trick. I need to kind of stop this. But then also like, I'm like, sometimes they're just nowhere near it. And I'll just let them keep betting because it's more money for me. But so that dynamic there is really, really fun, especially when it's two people betting who are like kind of on a team, and then one person is like the dealer. It's like the house. It's fun to have the 2v1 dynamic, kind of like in Chimera or Kofir Yas or whatever, where one player is distinctly different than the other two. Some of the cons to the game, I think it's pretty fiddly. Just the stacking the bet tokens and remembering to put out a black token that covers which number has just been played. And then even at the start when you deal out all the cards for a hand, you have like, especially at 3, you have a fair amount of cards that are cut. And since it matters about the last trick, you have to like sit there and just be like, okay, what's that number? I have to cover it up. I have to cover that up. So each hand has like but like a maintenance and a flow, and each trick has like a maintenance and a flow. That it's definitely a pretty fiddly game. If you don't like gambling, you're just not gonna like this game, like at all. I play with someone who doesn't like gambling and they're just not having a good time. So that's another tough thing, another caveat. Obviously, I don't think you play a roulette game if you don't like gambling. But yeah, it's very strong in this game. I don't think the trick taking will save anything if that's where you're at. I love that the trick play has the leniency of a May trump whenever you can, whenever you want to, because there are just times when you really want to bet, you know? And it's cool that the person who's leading won't have the option to like May trump in, right? So there's a nice kind of allowing of whoever just won, whoever just bid, technically have less odds of winning the trick and betting a next time. So I love that, like, usually the flow is really balanced between those two players that are playing against the dealer to be like bid. And sometimes not, you know, sometimes they'll lead like a really high number and the other player doesn't think they want to bid this early or not yet. So they'll save it, you know, and they'll slough off like a low card in suit. So it's nice. I think the trick play with like the clever like a May trump and the offsuit trumping whenever you want allows players to bid when they want to or bid when they haven't, and to balance that a lot. So the trick playing is also like really well considered in that way. Another cool thing is I don't know if I like last trick taking games that much. There's Gudetama, which I definitely do not like, sadly. There's the Bark Side, which I think is like okay for sure. And then there's my favorite Carrera, which is pretty good actually. I do like that one. But I think last trick sometimes it's a little bit more gimmicky than it is like good. And this game I think does it amazingly. The fact that everyone really cares about the last trick and you know what's in your hand. So you have like 1/3 of a chance of kind of having that card that is the last trick. And it's really cool to like look at your hand and be like, oh, I wonder if I lead a lot of black, that the last trick will be led red and this really high black trump I have, like 31 or whatever, could win it. So maybe I do bet on that. But then betting on that kind of shows your hand, like literally, to the other people at the table. Like they're like, oh, you just bet a bunch on 31, huh? You have 31, huh? I'm going to go out of the way to not let that happen. So I like that, like, there's like a cat's, is that the way? I don't think it's a cat's cradle. That's like it's a song, who knows? There's a kind of like a game of chicken in a way, to do increasingly important bids that you don't want to reveal where you're going too much. Like sometimes I'll just bid like odd or even because it's just like, okay, right? Or like I'll bid the top third, you know, or the top half because it's like, yeah, okay, you're doing safe bets, and then near the end you're doing crazy bets, especially if there's like a no more bet in the middle and you have like 3 tricks or something left, and the dealer is looking at what they want to fail, and the other person's looking at what they want to fail for that person, or the other person who bid. And there's like a great sense of just like, okay, 3 tricks left, how do I mess this up? Or how do I make this happen? So there's like a really, really like amazing arc to the hands in this game. I just love the arc of like information and then kind of crash. And everyone's so invested in the last like tricks, especially the last trick, because it's like what you've been building up to. And it's so funny that the last trick is the most important, but you actually like sometimes don't even care if you're the one who wins it, you know? You could be betting on like a high section and then have only low cards, but like you did that because you saw someone else betting high, or that those were the cards that were left. So sometimes you're like, you know, I'm not going to win this trick, or last trick, but I really don't care because I can't bet anymore, and that's where my bets are placed. So it's cool to have a flow of I want to win to like place bets, and then at the end you're like, I want something else to win, or I want something to happen that isn't like winning tricks, but it's still like trick related. So cool. This game has such a cool flow in the trick taking. So yeah, that is Roulette-Taking. I think it is so close. I'm so close to recommending this. I'm going to give it a whiff. I'm going to get Taylor's whiff of the seal. Because I just think it's pretty fiddly. It only works at 3. There's some caveats for sure. I think the trick taking is fun, if a little bit loose. But really, that betting is so fun. I love like going for it in the final round because you know it's the final round. I love the fact that any misbids just go to the dealer. It's so clever. So if people just like go for it in the final round, they could just miss and the dealer could like win all that. And so I think it's a well considered game. It handles roulette and trick taking like perfectly. It's awesome when a game kind of sets out for something and you're like, yeah, like there may be cons of this game, but like you kind of did it the best you could do it. Like that is how roulette trick taking would feel. And so I'll give it the whiff of a seal. I do really, really enjoy it, but it's an interesting one for sure. But anyway, definitely check this out if that sounds at all interesting to you. And thanks so much for watching.